Hey crew, before we get started on this season, I just wanted to say welcome back to Enterprising Individuals. We're so excited to embark on the 5th year of the show. Ha! 5. Take that, Enterprise. Whether we'll make it to the requisite 7 seasons like a Trek show, it's a conversation for a different time. You might notice a few changes around the show this year, just like DS9 and Voyager or any show that makes it past 4 seasons. We're doing a little retooling and repiloting, if you will, so look for a few surprises. Here's your first surprise. You're getting this episode, our premiere of Season 5, a little bit early. Season 5 proper won't begin in earnest until February, so wait for that. But today's episode is about one Jean-Luc Picard, and we wanted to make sure that we published it ahead of the premiere of Star Trek Picard, which is out this week, Thursday the 23rd, on CBS All Access. And guess what? We'll be doing live recap and discussion shows every Thursday for all 10 episodes of Picard, just like we did for the short treks and for both seasons of Star Trek Discovery. We call our recap show Star Trek Discoverage, and we're expanding the brand to cover all the new CBS All Access Star Trek shows, starting with Picard this Thursday, January the 23rd. Unlike Discovery, episodes of Picard won't be coming out in the primetime block. They're being released at 12:01 a.m. on Thursday, which means we'll be doing things a little differently. We used to go live, around 70 minutes after Discovery was released and dropped on CBS. That way you could watch the show. We watch the show. We all take a bathroom break, come back, and then you hear us discuss the new episode live. With no time pressure, we, that is myself and Ella Pearson, my co-host, we're planning to go live with our special guest at 7 p.m. this Thursday, the 23rd. So for you, watch the episode whenever you're going to do that. Probably at 12:01 a.m., you weirdo. Then tune into us at 7 p.m. Central that night to hear us discuss the new episode and the return of Jean-Luc Picard to Star Trek. I can't even believe it. Follow us on Twitter at EISTPOD to get notified when we're going live, and you can listen to us there or on our Spreaker page. And tweet to us during the show. Join the conversation. Use the hashtag Discoverage when you do. Discoverage rides again alongside Enterprising Individuals in 2020. As always, you can follow us on social media at EISTPOD for updates or to just say hello, and consider joining our network's Discord channel. We've got a great bunch of nerds talking about all kinds of pop culture on the Just Enough Trope Network Discord. You can find a link to it in the show notes of this episode. And if you'd like to help the show grow, please consider checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/EISTpod. We've got all kinds of goodies and extra content for members of the show. All right, that's it for the sales pitches. I'll definitely be back with more of those in the future, but for now, please enjoy my talk with Kevin Church, one of my favorite people to talk to about Star Trek and pop culture. We had a great talk about Jean-Luc Picard and what he's up to. I hope you like it, and with that, let's get another season of Enterprising Individuals underway. Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Enterprising Individuals, the Star Trek discussion podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about the series, characters, and stories of the Star Trek universe. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and I believe that the more difficult the task, the sweeter the victory, which is why I open candy bars with my feet. I'm joined in this episode once again by Kevin Church. Kevin is an SEO content manager and specialist. He's also a writer and editor. Has been published on StarTrek.com, ComicsAlliance.com, and Pace Magazine. He's also written for a variety of comics and webcomics, such as Adventure Time, Bravest Warriors, Regular Show, She Died in Terabon, and The Rack. Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Always glad to be here.
It's great to have you. Permission to come aboard granted. Today we'll be talking about Captain's Holiday, the 19th episode of the third season of Star Trek The Next Generation. The characters of modern Star Trek shows are some of the most intriguing and well-drawn of any sci-fi franchise, but in reality that wasn't necessarily a given. The oppressive nature of weekly television production means that it's far more easy to write for a character that never grows or changes, and in fact, many of the adventures of the Enterprise under Captain Kirk found the crew's beliefs and values being challenged and found superior and unchangeable. But with the advent of a new Star Trek series and the debut of new and ambitious writers and creators, the next generation of Trek would introduce the world to a cast of protagonists who were noble but fallible and who would explore not only the galaxy, but their own beliefs and preconceptions. But we'll talk about that a little later in the show. First, Kevin, it's great to have you back on the show. And a lot has happened in the real world and in the world of Trek since you were on last year.
Yeah, I got married. That's the most
Congratulations.
Yeah. But yes, it's been an exciting for Star Trek fans. It's been fraught and exciting at the same time. Every fan cringes because their favorite thing's not going to get the mention they want, the thing that they want. But then we get things like an entire season of Captain Pike running the Discovery and return of, I'll say it, the best actor in Star Trek to the role that he defined.
I don't think that's...
I can't get over. Yeah. I can't get over that we're getting Picard back.
Yeah, that's not a stretch to say, I don't think. And that's a great way to describe it. It's like exciting and terrifying at the same time. But I think so far they've done pretty well. And I'm looking forward to some of the things that they've got in store. The last time that we talked, you were an SEO manager for Namecheap, which is the hosting provider that I use. You've worked previously in SEO for Vistaprint. That's where I get my promotional materials. You're now an SEO manager for Swappa, where I get my business machines from. If you end up managing search traffic for Spreaker, my podcast host, you're going to encompass every aspect of my business.
They didn't have any openings this time.
Okay.
But yes, no, I'm really opportunity. I'm going to get a chance to say, I tweeted about this, but Swappa does something really unique in that anybody that's buying electronics on the big platforms from individual sellers like Amazon or eBay, there's always some tension. You don't know if you're going to dealing with a real human, if you're dealing with a fraudulent transaction, anything like that. Yeah. And those sites are so big, they can't really manage individual transactions. One of the things I really love about Swappa, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to work with them so much, is they really do handle one-on-one. You actually are dealing, your entire deal is you can go to a customer service person anytime and with a problem. Yeah. And they will resolve the issue for you. Yeah. Which, eBay nowadays has gotten more and more into we only care about our power sellers. Amazon is so easily gamed, and you can buy fake reviews, that having a human-centric marketplace, I just think it's a great thing. Yeah. So, yes. I'm really excited. I'm starting literally my first day is tomorrow, so I'm excited.
Wow. Okay.
I'm excited at the chance to do what I want to do there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm not getting paid for this, but I really do like Swappa, and I've done several transactions there, and it's always really easy. And you get exactly, what is described. You're looking for a gently used phone or a tablet or device, and it's a great way to get hooked up with sellers or even sell if you're looking for buyers.
Yeah, you know what? I'll see what I can do about getting them to sponsor the podcast.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. All right, we'll talk about that later. You had an article published last year on StarTrek.com titled 8 Times Leonard Bones McCoy's Medical Knowledge Saved the Day, which was a very nice piece, and it reminded me just how often Bones was working miracles in all aspects of all shows and movies he's appeared in.
And what's great is everyone thinks of Scotty as the miracle worker, but Bones so often it's not engineering a lot of times. So many times it's, how do I take this completely different biology and do crazy things with it? And, how do I put a brain back into a Vulcan skull?
Yeah, right.
Things like that. Yeah. Scotty, just has to keep those engines running. Bones has to keep 400 and some odd crew members, all with wildly different biologies and psychologies. Yeah. So Bones. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Bones is the best character in fiction because I think he's such a great audience stand-in on Star Trek, the original series. Yeah. Because he's the one that says the thing that you're oftentimes thinking.
Yeah. I also like how he's known as the grousey guy, and he kind of complains a lot. But he's also, I've mentioned this I think on the show before, but he can get like ice cold when the situation requires it. Like if somebody threatens him, he's not having any of that. He's immediately like, yeah, you do what you have to do.
That brilliant scene with Khan, where to cut his neck. That's just Bones, best character in fiction. Yes, and I know Batman exists. He's great.
Yeah, I'd put Bones up against Batman, no problem. I've been following you on Twitter. You're a great follow. I've noticed that you seem to be in the middle of a TNG rewatch right now.
That's right. The wife never watched Next Generation. She knew about it. She knew the characters, but she never really watched it.
Interesting.
So we're doing a Picard-centric rewatch. We've been going through chronologically. And I'm hoping we get to All Good Things before Picard's show debuts. But also because it's on a streaming service, we can probably wait until Saturday or Sunday to watch debut of the Picard show. And I just need to mute his name on Twitter.
Yeah, right.
But I got to say, what I've seen with the Star Trek series, much more than other like Netflix and other streaming services things, fans are very respectful about spoilers because there's something Star Trek fans have been dealing with for decades.
Yeah, certainly.
We don't want spoilers. We want to experience the story ourselves. So at least that's what I've noticed. Discovery fans tend to want you to experience the same thing they're experiencing. So hopefully that continues with Picard. And yeah, it's been a really fun rewatch. Getting a chance to really enjoy how much Patrick Stewart brings to the role. We watched The Inner Light yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of my favorite science fiction stories, but I don't know if it's like really a great Star Trek story, but it's such a great piece of science fiction.
Yeah.
That his performance is so, like when he comes out of the probe's influence and he's like brought into the present day, he's acting without acting much, and it's just he's just a marvelous guy to watch.
The last time I watched that, I timed that moment, and it's from when he opens his eyes to when he addresses Riker, or the dialogue starts up again. It's 30 seconds, and that's an eternity on TV. And the fact that they had so much faith in him and the script and what needed to happen for the character, it just says so much about the respect that they had for him as an actor. There's another great moment at the end of the episode where I think either Picard or Riker, one of them has the last line in that scene where he comes and he brings him the flute. And there's this little, he hands the box, Riker hands the box to Picard, and then it's a little bit of Frakes, I think, maybe not Riker, but he sort of like invisibly tips the hat to him, and it's like, take us home, like, here we go. Yeah. And he leaves the room, and then of course we have that great scene where he picks up and plays the flute. It's great.
Frakes being such a good director of episodes, I can definitely see him going, okay, I'm going to do a little more here than what's called for in the script.
Yeah.
Because Patrick's going to walk out the door.
Take it away. Yeah. You have a music blog called Disco Potential. What was the inspiration behind starting that?
I've had it for years. It's actually named after a Pet Shop Boys B-side. Okay. And it started off kind of as a blog about disco-centric music, because I am actually a huge fan of disco.
Sure.
And not just the big stuff that you all think of when you hear the word disco, but like Soul Soul, going back to the clubs in New York, what they were actually playing on the dance floor that wasn't the soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever.
Sure.
Things like that. But it just kind of spun out from there. Sometimes I just I'll hear a song, I'm like, I haven't heard that in a while. Actually, today I was thinking about Dolly Parton.
Huh.
Thinking about, I grew up in the South, so I think about Dolly Parton a fair amount. I was like, I could put a Dolly song up on there. It's my blog. Nobody's going to say anything. Also, it's just been puttering along for years. I used to do DJ mixes for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I used to do full-fledged DJ mixes for it, but just never. You hit the point where you're just doing them to do them, and you don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton's having something of a renaissance again. I feel like every 5 or 10 years people rediscover Dolly Parton. Maybe it's new musical generations, but yeah, always good to see her back.
Yeah, it was Here You Come Again. Right. I don't know. It's a song. It's one that came out in like 81 or something. And it's just one of those songs that actually I just looked it up. It came out in 77, and it's from the movie Dumplin'.
Oh, of course, classic.
Yeah, but I was just thinking about that song, and it's a good song. But Dolly, I think Dolly's going to be like timeless. She's like Elvis. It's going to be like everybody rediscovers like why people loved her music. The Beatles is the same way, but Dolly, there's not as many country musicians that kind of fit into that niche, but Dolly definitely is up there
for sure.
Also, she's a great human being.
Oh yeah,
like she gives so much to help with childhood literacy.
Yeah, she's
a huge part of the economy in Tennessee. Things like that.
Yeah, she's got cool tats too.
Yeah, she does.
Last time you were on the show, we talked about the TOS episode, The Enterprise Incident, which of course features the Romulans. Now we've got a Picard show imminently releasing, and Romulans will feature heavily in that. Did you get a chance to read the Picard Countdown comic from IDW?
I did not yet. That's one I'll probably wait until it's all collected.
Sure.
Before I get.
Sure.
IDW's when Sarah Gatos left IDW to become editor-in-chief at Oni, I noticed their Star Trek output went down around the same time.
Yeah.
I should go back. I know I'm missing the Year 5, or was that what it was, or Year 5 miniseries, or they did some miniseries. I know they had a DC Fontana written story for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And some other stuff. But no, I've not checked that out yet. But when I first heard about the Picard series, my first thought was they're going to tie it to the refugee crisis.
Sure.
They're going to tie it to Star Trek 2009, and Picard's not going to be part of Starfleet anymore because of some decision somebody made. And I'm really wondering how right I was.
I won't ruin it for you, but you're not necessarily wrong. And yeah, you're right that this is very similar to the Countdown comic they did 10 years ago when Star Trek 2009 came out.
Yeah, that comic was really interesting because apparently they've had to retcon. They had to say, "Oh, that's apocrypha," even though at the time it was
supposed to be
canonical. Yeah. As I'll get to it. It's just something about like tie-in comics of that specific nature. I've never quite ever like grabbed onto them as much as I have. Here's some other stories involving I don't know, tying it specifically to movies and stuff. Just makes them feel like the comics are less special. They're just a marketing device, which I know that.
Yeah.
But don't tell me that.
Yeah. I feel that. I did read some of the Discovery tie-ins, though, and I found those to be, on the whole, generally really well done and interesting.
There was an annual, I want to say, or a special or something. Was there a Tilly comic?
There must have been. I read there was a Captain. There was a Saru focused one that was pretty good.
Oh yeah, about Saru being captain for the brief period. Yeah. No, I did read that. No, okay, yeah, that was good. No, Tilly is our household's patron angel. She's a sweet.
Sure.
And if they do anything to her, we will tear down
we riot.
/CBS's offices until we get answers. Yeah.
Well, why did you choose this specific episode, Captain's Holiday, to discuss today?
Well, like I said, we've been doing a Picard-centric rewatch of TNG, and it was such a great alternative to so much of the darker stories that are centered around the character, or heavy. I shouldn't necessarily say darker, but heavy, even though Best of Both Worlds gets pretty dark. Family is not a light episode, even though it's not necessarily about how bad Picard had it, but it's about him having to reconnect with people. But this one was I remember it being a fun episode. So when I rewatched it, it's been over a decade since I'd seen it. And of course I've read a lot of the material that I think it's riffing off of.
Yeah.
In the interim, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And Patrick Stewart really seems to be enjoying himself.
He does.
Like he's always a consummate professional, but in this episode in particular, he just seems to be like, I'm gonna make a Star Trek. I'm gonna do a Star Trek. And it's also got some the costume, like my wife likes to talk about, like how voluminous and how big a lot of the clothing is on TNG.
Yeah.
And it's got like those William Ware Thies costumes on the women again, and even Picard himself, he's showing off quite a lot of skin for I think Patrick Stewart was like 52 years old
at
the point, or something like that, and he looks fantastic, and he's wearing great clothes, and he's having an adventure that's all. So, and it's also so different from the rest of so many TNG episodes, including some I really like. Are we went to this planet? There was a problem with these two people. We had to solve it in some way. Let's go elsewhere. And it's such a departure for the show. It's a character-centric departure. And also the idea of him going for never having gone on shore leave. I realized the other day that I've not had a vacation where I did not work in some way.
Yeah.
In like 5 years. Like I didn't have my laptop. Like we went back to see my wife's family in Kansas over Christmas. And she's like, should you bring the laptop? You're hoping for a job and stuff. And I'm like, nah, let's just disconnect entirely.
Yeah.
And, seeing him disconnect entirely, with a James Joyce novel and a sex totem.
Yeah.
Which is like, I love that Riker pulling that prank on Picard is just one of my favorite bits.
He's a scamp. I'm always fascinated at the way that characters develop in like serial media, like TV shows or comics, or even long-running movie franchises like the MCU. You come up with a basic pitch for a character, a show Bible entry, and the idea is you're going to try and develop them. But who knows? Things might not go that way. We never really learn all that much about Sulu or Chekhov, except one's kind of a smartass and the other thinks that Russians invented everything. And it could easily have been the same with the TNG characters. Yet the writers behind the show made this concentrated effort to push them out of their comfort zone and add dimensions to them and show them grow in unexpected ways and do things like this. Go on like solo adventures that have nothing to do with being in Starfleet. And unfortunately, it seems like that really got rolling once Gene Roddenberry had to relinquish control of the series.
That's exactly it. The less control Roddenberry had, direct control Roddenberry seemed to have over Star Trek: The Next Generation, the more human the show became.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't mention this right off the bat. I should have made you pitch it. I started a blog reviewing the old Star Trek novels of the 80s.
Oh.
Because I don't have enough to do.
Yeah.
It's actually, there's a link from theyboldlywent.com. There's a link for books. It's theyboldlywent.com/trekbooks. And I just reread Gene Roddenberry's novelization of Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Oh, sure.
That guy's got some weird ideas. He does not like anybody that's not perfect in every way.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like you realize how much Shatner brings to Kirk when you read Kirk Unfiltered, written by the guy that created him. You're like, this guy's kind of terrible.
Yeah.
And rude. Charmless. That's the word. And watching Riker and Troy move away from just being Decker and Ilea that have been reskinned for series use.
Yeah.
And watching them become friends, and then later on they get married and everything, but watching them like have arcs as people and talk to each other about things like their relationships, which in TOS never was even, you did not make television like that was genre TV though.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest differences is that the TNG writer staff brought broader TV writing techniques to Star Trek. I don't know if they necessarily realized that they were doing it with purposefully, with purpose.
Yeah.
Or if they were just doing something that they thought made a better show. You know what I mean? I don't know if they were going, well, we saw this worked on Moonlighting, so we're going to do it on our show.
Right, yeah.
No, I don't think that they were doing that. I think they were like, I'd really like these actors to get to do more things.
Yeah. I think they were trying, but I think it definitely, Gene stepping away had a huge part to play in that. And then, of course, after he unfortunately passed, the fourth season kicks off and the dust settles from Best of Both Worlds and we get Family.
Yes. Which is, for my money, and I didn't realize until yesterday when we were watching Rascals, the same kid plays Picard's nephew as plays the baby Picard in Rascals.
Right, yep.
I did not realize that until I'm like 5 minutes into Rascals. I'm like, it's the kid.
Yeah.
But, Family's just one of those episodes that, again, it's heavy, but it's a character-driven episode. Star Trek did not do character-driven episodes.
No, not really. Yeah.
They did episodes that were thematic and plot-driven, but like even episodes like, oh my gosh, For the World is Hollow and I've Touched the Sky.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a plot, and McCoy's arc in it is the B story to the A story there.
Right, yeah. Well, this episode we're talking about is Captain's Holiday. It is the 19th episode of the third season of TNG. It first aired on April 2nd, 1990. It was written by Ira Steven Behr, who we've already talked about many times on this show, but I'll mention quickly that he was a writer and executive producer on DS9. He was the chief engineer of the Dominion War story arc on that show. He was also a producer on TNG in Season 3. He collaborated previously on the teleplay for the TNG episode Yesterday's Enterprise. This was his first solo script for Trek. He also introduced the concept of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, and he wrote most of the rules, which appeared in the franchise. And outside of Trek, he's had a lot of other work. He worked on series Dark Angel. He worked on the Twilight Zone reboot in 2002, the show The 4400, and he was a big part of the show Alphas, which I really enjoyed. It was cut short too soon. And he also wrote for the Stars series Crash and Outlander, along with Ronald D. Moore. The episode was directed by Chip Chalmers. This is the first episode that he directed for Trek, but he'd go on to direct 4 episodes of TNG and 2 of DS9. He was also a first assistant director on 12 episodes of TNG. Before he began his career in film, he worked as a magician, apparently, in Los Angeles. And apparently he got very ill during the production of this episode, and he spent time in between takes passed out on a cot on set. And then once they had everything set up, they'd be like, okay, and then action, and then go back to the cot. But I appreciate his work ethic pushing through.
Chalmers directed Take Me Out to the Holodeck.
There you go.
Directed the baseball episode of Deep Space Nine, which apparently I did not know this. A lot of people hate, but I'm like, it features Worf in a baseball cap,
right,
screaming at people.
Right.
This is the high point of the franchise, guys.
The start date for the episode is 43745.2, and your assignment, Kevin, if you can, is to give us a 25-word synopsis of Captain's Holiday.
Okay. Do you like Raymond Chandler? Ira Steven Behr does.
Enough said, I think. Yeah, and then maybe the stuff that dreams are made of or something like that. Yeah. Here's some interesting facts from the memory banks about this episode, and we'll talk more specifically about the origins behind the ideas in this episode a little later, but one of the show's inspirations was apparently Picard actor Patrick Stewart complaining that the captain needed more action on the show. Ira Steven Behr recalled in the documentary Chaos on the Bridge that, quote, Patrick kept saying that the trouble with the show is that there's not enough effing and effing, that is, fighting and fornicating. The place that all the sex and shooting takes place in this episode is, of course, the planet Risa. This is the first appearance of the pleasure planet Risa, the first time it's mentioned in the franchise. It would, of course, remain a staple in the Trek universe and even be mentioned in prequel series, Enterprise and Discovery. The episode marks the last appearance of an Andorian in a Trek show until Enterprise's The Andorian Incident 11 years later. And the Tox Uthat, the MacGuffin in this episode, has the ability to halt all nuclear fusion within a star. That's a capability shared by the device developed by Tolian Soren in the film Star Trek Generations. Let's talk about the guest stars in this episode. This episode, of course, features the introduction of Jennifer Hetrick in the role of Vash. This is the introduction of that character. She'd appear again in the episodes Cupid in TNG and Q-Less in DS9. And she's appeared mostly in guest roles on various TV series. She had a recurring role on the NBC series LA Law around the time of this episode's release. She's also appeared in popular shows such as The X-Files, Sliders, Beverly Hills 90210, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 24, and she was in a 2018 episode of the CBS series Code Black. And I don't know if this is true or not, but Patrick Stewart apparently took credit for the idea of this character. He said in the Chaos on the Bridge documentary that, quote, I've got a feeling our audience might like to see the captain just getting blown away by meeting somebody new. And Ira Steven Behr interpreted that as, in his own words, quote, a ballsy woman who's not your typical Star Trek woman, a clear thinker both in terms of what she did in her own life and sex and the whole bit. And I think that we see that come out in the character of Vash. The episode also features Max Grodenchik as the Ferengi Sovak. This is Grodenchik's first Trek role, though he would, of course, go on to play Rom on all 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine. He would also play the Ferengi Par Lenore in the 5th season episode, The Perfect Mate. and he would play the first Grand Nagus, whose name is Gint, I believe, in the dream sequence in the 4th season episode of DS9, Body Parts. Karen Landry and Michael Champion appear as the Vorgons. Landry was best known for her recurring role of Myra White on the TV series St. Elsewhere, and Champion has had a variety of TV and film roles during his career. He appeared in the movies Total Recall, Beverly Hills Cop, and History of the World Part 1. And finally, Deidre Immershine appears as Joval, one of the hostesses on Risa. She'd be seen again in Trek as Lieutenant Watley in the DS9 episode Trials and Tribulations. She's the Deck 15 girl.
Oh, wow. I was watching, when I was watching Captain's Holiday, I kept on looking at Boratis's face, and I was like, his eyes.
Yeah.
His eyes had me magnetized, and it took me forever until I was like, it's the Total Recall guy.
Yeah.
And he has like 3 lines in Total Recall.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
But his look, because he has these glasses, he has these piercing blue eyes. I really actually love the way those aliens look, because it's such a huge prosthesis.
Yeah.
That even if their dialogue is kind of muffled and everything, it was a very ambitious design.
There's a design aesthetic for Star Trek when they're going sort of beyond what they do, because these are like what happens in the 27th century. Like these are like they're extra aliens, they're extra Trek.
Yeah. They have like 3 foreheads.
Yeah, multicolored holograms and yeah. There's a funny story connected to the development of this episode. Ira Steven Behr's original script, which he actually developed with input from Ron Moore, only featured Risa as just a setting, really. Captain Picard would go to Risa, and on the planet he'd discover a game or an attraction there that would confront the user with their greatest fears. And in the case of Captain Picard, this would be him living in a future where he has a boring desk job as an admiral, maybe something similar to where he's at in Picard, and he'd have to deal with his feelings about obsolescence in that possible future. And Michael Piller, who was the new showrunner at this point, loved the idea, but Gene Roddenberry, who's still the executive producer, didn't like it, and he nixed the idea because in his mind, like a lot of his ideas about the future, people in the 24th century weren't afraid of death. They weren't afraid of being obsolete, and everybody would love their jobs. The part he did like, however, was the idea of a sexually open vacation planet, and he asked Behr to write lots of scenes with people making out, and women are kissing women, and men are kissing men, and we're going to imply that everybody's doing it in the background, which is admirable, I guess, because we didn't get a lot of same-sex relationships in Trek at this time, but Behr knew that this would never get past the censors, so he took it to Rick Berman, and I think like a lot of decisions that Gene made, Rick was like, don't worry about it. Just write the episode however you want. Just ignore him. And then later Berman told Roddenberry, yeah, I don't think we can afford to cast all these half-naked making out extras, so we're going to have to cut all those parts. And that's how we got this episode that we got.
That's Berman, I know views on him are controversial, but one of the things, he was good at running around Roddenberry.
Yes. Keeping things on track. Yes. Yeah. In some alternate universe, I'd like to see some what if comic maybe where there is no Berman and we see where Roddenberry takes the show to another 3rd season cancellation. But Berman definitely knew, and he said this before in interviews, that like he just wanted to preserve Gene's idea, even if like Gene's idea strayed off of what Gene's idea was. Like he wanted to keep this show and this like concept of this show going on the rails. And I think he accomplished that. This is a pretty well done episode. It's right in the middle of the sweet spot of season 3 where the show really takes off. And one of the reasons I think the show becomes so strong is that it's willing to do an episode like this. It doesn't have anything to do with the mission of Starfleet. It's just, like we said before, taking one character and just developing them, following them in some adventure that's off the Enterprise.
The show has a really great rhythm.
Yeah.
Like if you're just scrolling through Netflix, like starting in its 3rd season, it does. It's like space story, bottle episode, odd story. Space story, bottle episode, a personal story.
Right.
It really does. The quality jump is so remarkable. Like the 2nd season has a few really standout moments, and then come the 3rd season, I mean, again, it's not my favorite Star Trek, but there is a lot to love about TNG when it hits its stride.
Yeah, and it really remains strong pretty much I'd say, well, to the end of the 6th season, there are some big misses, but but they're trying something, So you'd have like you said before, the rhythm would kind of change to 3 or 4 very solid episodes, and then one that's like, all right, I guess you had to try to tell this story, or maybe you just couldn't be that good that long and you had to sort of blow off a bad one. But yeah, the show really does stay solid for a lot of this time. And as you mentioned earlier, I like the way that the TNG characters have bullet points, sort of on their character sheet. Picard lost a ship. He likes his dead friend's wife. He's into archaeology. And they're so successful, I think, at finding interesting ways to not only do an episode that touches on those bullet points, but also uses them to really broaden the characters. And you brought up Sisko and baseball before. I think that's a great example. Like, him liking baseball is a fun thing. It can lead to a fun episode like Take Me Out to the Holosuite, but it's put to amazing use immediately in the pilot when he's using the progression of an inning, in the sport of baseball as this desperate attempt to try and explain how linear time works to these nonlinear aliens.
Yeah, and of course, first of all, you'd have to get aliens to sit down and watch a whole baseball game.
Yeah, right. You can't get Americans to do that.
And you can't get. I mean, I live with 2 of the biggest teams in baseball within a short subway ride. I'm not sitting in a stadium for 19 hours to watch a baseball game.
Right. Yeah, that's baseball's problem, though. Of course, it dies out. I can't remember when exactly they say it dies out, but it's soon in our timeline. It's in like the 2030s or something like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be like there's gonna be the World Series. The Tokyo team is gonna win the World Series.
Yeah, Buck Buckeye is in the minors right now, warming up. Yeah. So
we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
A bad example of what I'm talking about is Harry Kim plays the clarinet. I don't know what you do with that, but they don't ever really do much with that.
It's one of those things. When they do those bullet points and they don't like follow through, it got real bad on Enterprise.
Yeah,
because those characters were starved for anything outside of, what's his name? Grumpy British man whose name just fled my head.
Malcolm?
On Enterprise. Malcolm, yeah. His whole thing is that he's part of a military family. That's like his entire character. And I'm like, no, do something with that.
Yeah.
Has he had struggles to live up to their expectations? Does he want to do something that's not just strict military stuff? Does he want to be a botanist? Does he want to, learn something new? Does he want to sit down with Hoshi and learn how to become a linguist or something like that? That never happens. Even on TOS, they had characters, like little bits, little exchanges that were, not what we would see on TNG. They grew the characters. Even in the first season, Sulu loved plants. Yeah. Likes to take his shirt off for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah, Spock is noodling around on the loot, and that's all well and good. And then in the 3rd season, it helps him break through to some hippies.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, just finding different sort of aspects or hooks on these characters and letting them sort of hook into other things is something that I think when the show and when the franchise is clicking, it does really well. This episode is a departure, but as you sort of obliquely pointed out earlier, it's not that big of a departure. It's basically like the Maltese Falcon in space. And we've talked about noir and noir elements in the show before, but it works surprisingly well here. And it's not the kind of story that you would expect Captain Jean-Luc Picard to get himself wrapped up in.
Him being an archaeology nut kind of makes sense, though.
Yeah.
He's a nerd. Picard's a nerd.
Oh, yeah,
I love it. But that guy's a nerd.
He brings Ulysses to a sex planet.
You're at the sex planet. At least take 50 Shades of Grey or something. That's classical literature.
At this point, yeah.
But no, Picard takes Ulysses to a sex planet. Doesn't even seem to be doing any, I'm going to go on nature walks or anything, which if I was stuck in a starship for years at a time, even with the holodeck, maybe I'd want to go see some waterfalls.
Real waterfalls.
Walk along a beach. It's space Hawaii. and this is what you're spending your time there.
Yeah.
And the way he gets roped in is it's really fun to watch because, anybody that's ever watched any kind of story unfold in the mystery narrative knows, I know what's going to happen. That dame's going to lead him down the wrong way.
Right. It's
so much fun watching him at first fight it and then kind of embrace the adventure.
Yeah.
And, he, like you say, Stewart, you could tell he was definitely in it to win it with this one. He wanted to do this kind of episode. And one of my favorite things is there's a echo of a TOS episode when Beverly Crusher confronts him about his fitness, about his crew fitness. There's a scene in the episode Shore Leave on TOS where Spock comes in with crew fitness reports and rattles off that Kirk that this person is showing signs of stress and fatigue, the reaction time's down, et cetera, and Kirk's like, that person needs their rating is terrible, and Spock's like, he's becoming irritable and quarrelsome. Like, this is a report from McCoy. He's saying this guy refuses to take rest, and Kirk's like, oh, it's me, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spock's like, yeah, you got to go down to the planet. And Beverly Crusher does that exact same thing with Picard and goes, look, this guy's being a real jerk on the ship.
Yeah.
I mean, want to get rid of the jerk for a while?
Yeah, we probably should. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's me. Yeah. Dude, you always get in Star Trek the Doctor like threatening to remove the captain. Like, do they really have that power, or is it debatable?
Well, in the Star Trek novel Doctor's Orders, written by Diane Duane, Kirk gives McCoy command of the Enterprise on a dare and then goes and gets lost.
Oh, yeah.
And McCoy, because it was a medical transfer, can't give command to Spock. So he's got to be the captain.
Stuck with it.
He's stuck with it. So I do think that in like a doctor could say, you need to not sit in the center chair for 3 days.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could actually take command away effectively unless they're mentally unwell or physically harmed beyond belief.
I'm thinking of something like the Doomsday Machine, where Commodore Decker's not looking good, but they just can't get him out of that chair.
But he was so loud.
Yeah, he was the loudest. Yeah,
he was so loud, and like you don't want to get yelled at.
This episode, when once you know or you realize that it's kind of following this Maltese Falcon, Dashiell Hammett-esque script, it really does cleave just directly to that. And I'm not criticizing Behr as a writer for this, but I think once he probably found that, it got a lot easier to write, I'd imagine, too.
Oh, yeah.
We've got this sort of slinky, mysterious woman. You've got Max Grodenchik, who... Oh, thank God they found this guy. He's so good as Rom, and he's just such a nice guy and such a great actor.
Yeah, Grodenchik is having so much fun.
Yeah.
Grodenchik is like, I get to be the Peter Lorre character. Yeah. I get to be the guy that's like manipulating everyone. I'm going to get what I want out of this.
Yeah. And of course, an enlightened 24th century human like Jean-Luc Picard is no Sam Spade. So he's not going to treat him exactly the same way, but we do get that great moment when he takes the gun off of him and everything's fine. And he just, bam, just hits him in the face like Sam Spade would. It's good stuff.
Yeah. The Grodenchik's performance is, he's a great actor for the roles he had.
Yeah. It's always fun to see him pop up in stuff because he's in feature films and he's in other TV shows, and it's like, oh wow, it's Max.
Yeah, he the guy that played the Doctor on Enterprise, that guy, the guy
Billingsley.
Yeah, he's always Billingsley. I'm always like, hey, Billingsley.
Yeah,
love that guy. But yeah, the way that this episode's kind of constructed. It tells you right off the bat it's going to be a light episode.
Yeah.
Like Picard being grumpy on the bridge in the first minute tells you, well, this is going to be an episode where they're going to do something a little different. And this was they didn't do a lot of just straight comedy episodes on TNG.
Yeah.
Or for as long as the running time was. And this is a good adventure comedy episode, even though it does lean more into adventure. But the whole idea of this thing that destroys entire worlds, and Picard's first impulse isn't to just destroy it the second he sees it.
Right.
Like I'm sorry, fire a phaser at it, destroy it, they can worry about that in the future.
Yeah. He does. That's one thing I wanted to bring up, is that I like how Patrick Stewart ends up playing Picard in this episode. But I think once you get through the initial, like the first 2 acts where he's crabby, he doesn't want any part of this sex planet, and then we start the noir plot, he does act a little bit out of character in that, like you said, they go, hey, there's this weapon that can destroy entire stars. And he's like, okay, I'll keep my eye out for it. And he has to play coy like the PI would in this and not take a side. But you're right. Like Picard would absolutely be like, okay, we got to take care of this thing right now.
If this thing threatens the lives of billions of people, I need to do my... And like, he doesn't ever go, my oath as a Starfleet captain is to help, life flourish, et cetera, whatever their oath is. I presume it's something nice about being nice to preserving peace, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, that and the amazing spin he does when he does the transporter move, the leap and tumble.
Yeah.
It's like, they either got a really good stuntman or Patrick Stewart, like they had a mat rolled out for him to do the leap, tumble, and transporter move.
Yeah.
To get rid of the device at the end. And like you mentioned, it is a star-destroying device, which, Saran, who knows, maybe he created the quandary where Saran had a breakthrough, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, maybe.
I'm sure there's probably a novel about that.
There's got to be, or a comic book, yeah. It's an interesting twist, too, to have him as the upright Starfleet Captain Picard that we know kind of immediately believe, like the Vorgons, from the 27th century. They come in, they're like, we're the cops here, we're on the level. And then it sets up, later on for him to go, wait a minute, I don't think these guys are full of crap here.
Yeah, like, I guess, I think he has always kind of dealt with people showing up from the future and showing up from the past. And,
sure.
I'm a trusted authority figure. You can trust me because I said so.
Yeah.
Unlike, I guess Kirk would have been like, really? Really? You're going to tell me? I don't believe that. But Picard's a more generous person.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And he's willing to change his mind when he gets more information.
Yes.
This movie not only is noirish, but it also is sort of an adventure-esque movie. Of course, in the second half, when they put on their jodhpurs, and he's wearing a women's blouse. That's a woman's blouse. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And they go off on their adventure with their uncomfortable backpacks, and it's fun camping with Jean-Luc.
I'm gonna say it. They had sex in a cave without like an air mattress or anything.
Yeah.
That's you're a Starfleet captain. Show some dignity, man.
Yeah, right. There's got to be a blow up or something. We have all kinds of technology in the future. What do you think about Vash and Picard sort of as a duo? Like I was thinking about like Picard's loves in his life and series, and there aren't really a lot to choose from. What do you think she ranks?
I rank her pretty highly because she's such the opposite, and I think that there's a part of Picard that is attracted to somebody who is doing kind of the opposite of what he does.
Yeah.
He seeks to gain greater knowledge for everyone. She uses her knowledge and interest in things to make profit, which to him is a crazy, probably as a Starfleet officer, money. You have to worry about pay and
right.
Making that's so alien, like her lifestyle is so alien to him. I mean, obviously Crusher is kind of the one who got away.
Yeah.
We literally see that in All Good Things. I like Vosh. I like Vosh quite a lot. I do think that she is pretty simplistic, though. Like both of her appearances that I've seen. I don't know if she shows up outside of here in Cupid. Does she? She
shows up on DS9 in Q-less.
Oh, which I've not watched. So, yeah. And her embracing the Q, I think that was actually, I like her for that. Like when Q's like, she's cool. I'm going to go do space things with this chick. This chick's great. I'm going to hang out with her for a while.
Yeah.
Which is something that if I were Picard, I'd be really jealous of.
Oh, yeah.
Like getting to explore the universe and see all these great events.
Right. And also, Q's in love with me.
Oh, the way Q and Picard, like my wife was watching it going, did they like address this? And I'm like, nope.
They are. Nope. They do. They are in bed together in one scene.
Yeah, but they're never like. They never like. Q's never like. You're the only human that I ever want to spend time with, or anything like. He never says he loves him, but he loves him.
Yeah. I know that it's the function of all these shows are produced by the same production studio, and we like the character Q, and he keeps showing up. But I have this like headcanon theory that the only really important there's something really important about the ships and stations that we see, because this omnipotent being Q appears to the Enterprise, to DS9, to Voyager. Like there's just something they're
like
touched somehow, and more important than other Starfleet crews. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Nexuses.
Much like Doctor Who.
Yeah, right.
Doctor Who done right. Let's just say that. Let's just get all the nerds mad at us. Yeah. Q and Gary 7 are Doctor Who done right.
Yeah, Gary 7. Oh boy,
I don't even know that, because there was that crossover novel with Q and Trelane.
Right.
So I wonder if they ever did Q and Gary 7. Those two would probably have interesting.
Greg Cox. I'm sure Greg Cox has done something with that. Yeah,
I'm sure. That's his bread and butter. But yeah, but going back to this episode, I do like that it has pretty expensive sets.
Yeah.
And set pieces.
Yeah.
Which is like when we watched Inner Light, I'm like, oh, they built a town square and a house. And they just keep reusing those two sets.
Yeah, yeah.
But this one, there's actually, a couple of cabins that I'm sure are just refitted versions of each other. There's the outdoor place. There's the cave set. Which the cave set is, I love Star Trek caves.
Yeah.
But they don't look like the real thing at all, but they're perfect.
You know where they are.
Yeah.
They built a giant horga'hn.
Yeah, they just love there's something about the way they look. And Picard with a shovel. That's something we need more Star Trek characters using shovels. It's just not like a shovel seems like something Worf would really like to have.
Yeah.
Like Worf would have a shovel and just go, this is a really good thing.
Right.
This does two things. It hurts people and it makes holes.
My bat
I
left
can't
turns
make a
into
hole with a bat left.
Right. Everything on Risa seems like it has some, dual purpose, and maybe you want to wash your hands afterwards. But there's that really weird scene when the Deidre's character throws like the Star Wars training remote at Picard a couple times, the floating ball.
Yeah.
It just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that one. There's a real awkwardness. Like you could tell they were like, we have to direct this, we have to like do this, and it's like, it's 24th century fun is always so awkward to watch.
Yeah, it is. Unless it's computer enhanced, like in Insurrection, where they're doing the hacky sack dance or whatever, and they're kicking like 20 hacky sacks around.
Yeah, that just looks really fake. But like 24th century fun, just always like every time they even like I watched Borg and
sure,
is that the one with Whoopi with Guinan and Picard fencing?
Oh yeah,
yeah, and like that doesn't look fun. And fencing's like one of those things that cinematically is always supposed to be fun. Like they don't know how to portray fun in The Next Generation.
I think
except for the baseball episode, which makes baseball look fun, which means it's all in reverse.
Right. The more archaic thing. That's why they're always like going back in time to like old French bars on the holodeck, because that's why they want to get back to a fun time. I'm worried about data safety always in Star Trek, and there's a big no-no in this the first scene of this episode where the Vorgons show up and they are using the Atari computer at Risa to like find out where Picard is, and it just tells them, here's who's staying here, here's the rooms that they're in. It's a real like data privacy violation.
That definitely did not do the GDPR data protection.
Yeah, and it's a sex planet too. I know everybody's cool in like the 24th century, but you still might not want people to know you're on the sex planet.
And it is the captain of the Federation's flagship.
Right.
Like that means like a couple of Romulans that filed their foreheads down could beam down and ask that question.
Yeah, right. This is General Schwarzkopf. Like, we don't want to let everybody know where he's going. Right. I have to wonder how Risa works exactly. I mean, I'm not qualified really to examine this, but we come back here in DS9 for the episode that Behr wrote, Let He Who Is Without Sin, and we get a little more background on how the people who live and work there feel about it. And there's some people that don't like it necessarily, but you have to wonder, it's so easy to just write, they go to a pleasure planet. But if you're going to take that all the way, you have to start talking and thinking about how it fits into your society and what you're saying about, you know, prostitution, sex work, that sort of thing. It's one thing to just have Scotty flip a light on and off because he likes the belly dancer, but now we're in Risa and we've got Jamaharon and all this other stuff, and it's like, how does it work?
Well, and what is the economy like?
Right.
That's another thing. Like, do people do sex work in the future because they like having sex and helping people? Which is why a lot of people in the present day turn to sex work, is because they like sex and they like helping people.
Sure. But they get paid.
But they get paid.
Yeah. Is it all tax supported and government subsidized? Or?
I need to sit down with the book Trekonomics and figure out how next generation's economy is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Because as a avowed, like, straight up anti-capitalism as I am, I do believe in the marketplace, and I do believe that people should be able to exchange money for goods and services and establish an economy.
Sure.
And if you go to a place where there's no money, like, why would anybody choose to clean the rooms?
Yeah, right.
On the sex planet.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how much you can automate things. Somebody's got to put the fold down service on the sex planet involves a human being.
Right. Yeah. Who's putting the mints on the pillows?
Because they don't do droids. They don't do droids in Star Trek.
Right.
Because if it droids, they can just say, oh, we use C-3PO units. Don't ask about their intelligence. Because that puts you down another, like, they're slaves.
Yeah.
Talk about that. They call people master, they're slaves. We don't talk about that.
Yeah, right.
But next generation, like, establishing that, you know, that's one of my favorite things about TOS is that they're people doing a job. They're getting paid.
Oh, yeah. I was watching, what was it? Mud, I think, the other day. And one of the reason that Mud is hiding on this planet this time is that he violated some patents or something like that. He didn't pay for some patents. And that was like I've always wondered how money worked in the 23rd century, but at that point that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I'm like, these people get paychecks. There's absolutely money still at this point in the Federation. Yes. They make a big deal out of it, you know, in Picard's time, but there's an economy still. There has to be. Yeah.
And, you know, Vaj is making a profit off doing what she does. So
yeah.
What do you do with your money? Do you buy your own spaceship? Is that like how the economy works? Is if you work, you're kind of earning money to get above the basic level of living? And if that's true, that's kind of an interesting thing, because that means that if there's universal basic income,
right,
and replicators and everything, let us take care of everything, then people are like, I really want a spaceship. I really want my own transporter pad.
I don't moon.
Want a public transporter pad.
Yeah, right.
I want my own holodeck.
My government-issued Geo Metro isn't enough. I want something snazzier than this. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that would all, you know, that would make sense, and I think it's actually addressed in Trekonomics. So if people want to check that out,
I should
check out.
I need to sit down with it. I think I actually do have a copy of it. I've just not read the darn thing yet.
Yeah. Well, check it out. I have, and it's really great. We actually interviewed Manu Sadia on the show.
Yeah.
So check that out, listeners. Well, there was something else that I wanted to say before we kind of wrapped up here, and it was that this episode uses time travel, which even at this point in Trek was pretty worn out, but it does it in what I think is an intriguing way. And I think that it was born merely out of just wanting to be more interesting. Like, I think they were writing it and thinking, okay, we've got this object, people are going after it, but it can't just be from it's an alien object from another civilization. Like, what if it was from the future? And I think that that's, you know, a neat little thing. It doesn't have a lot of effect on the story, although apparently it did have more effect in earlier drafts of the script. There's a little bit of dialogue at the end of the aired episode where they talk about how they're time travelers, so they could try it again. And we get I didn't really understand what that was at first. Like, do they mean they're going to be in a time loop, or some other version of them is going to do this? And I think there were scenes that were cut that were more explicitly talking about how it was, the future people were going to try it again. And like the end of the script was originally like a repeat of an earlier scene in Act 2, like when he meets Vash for the first time. And they took that out because, that's super confusing.
That is confusing. That's a super intriguing idea. The idea of putting something in the far distant past where nobody can access it.
Yeah.
Like if you could take something, put it in a sealed vault of some kind, transport it like to the pre-Cambian era on Earth.
Sure, yeah.
Bury it, and set it up with a beacon that starts up in 200 million years or something.
Yeah.
That would be, of course. Why not just bury it in the future then? If you can go back.
If you could travel. Yeah, right.
That's the thing. I just read.
There's no dinosaurs in the future.
For that new blog I was doing, I just read The Entropy Effect.
Okay.
Which is a really thrilling novel that's ambitious, and it features Spock time hopping a bunch.
Okay.
To try to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Which is Captain Kirk's been murdered by one of Spock's oldest and most respected teachers.
Okay.
So, like, he has to figure out where in the timeline things diverged.
Sure.
And that was a lot of fun. But yeah, by that point, I love the idea of people from the future coming to the past saying, "Where's the thing?
Yeah.
Where's the thing?
Right.
We need the thing that you guys have."
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably would have enjoyed the repeat of the scene from earlier in the episode as like a tag at the first watching, but then it would start to gnaw at me.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things you'd be like, "Oh, that's clever. Oh, does that mean the show has never actually gone past that?"
Yeah.
Which, say what you will about the Abrams movies, and I know a lot of people say a lot of things. The way they explain cause and effect in time travel in like a minute in Star Trek 2009, it's just one of those things I'm like, I admire your brevity.
Yeah.
Your ability to explain it.
It's a good way to do it, too. Like, I like the access that time travel gives a writer or a creator in a story. It allows them, you can meet George Washington, but I'm in favor of limiting it so it's just...
You don't want time. Yeah, you don't want Time's Arrow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you want like...
Star Trek 4.
Yeah, right. You want like a Doctor Who thing where Doctor Who can go meet, George Washington, but what they're going to do is kind of, what already happened. And so they get to be present there, but we're not going to necessarily completely, erase, like Back to the Future, erase whatever happened. You're going to disappear from the photograph. And we'd have to have something, it's sort of like, I like the fact that the aliens come back and they know they in their records, they know that something happened, but they don't know exactly what. And now they've inserted themselves into the thing. And it turns out, oh, we're the guys that made him do transporter code 14.
Yes. Oh, it's our fault. Yeah. Speaking of that, Endgame, I think Avengers Endgame did a really way of doing the time travel stuff.
It did it by kind of like just bailing out of it and just being like, yeah, well, this is going to happen. So,
yeah,
which is it's a strong choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you wanted to say about this episode? I think we've done a pretty good job covering it.
No, like I said, I really I know the alien makeup's kind of a little hinky by today's standards, but I've got to say for the time it was really ambitious.
They look kind of like Neelix's ancestors.
They do, and I've got to say their costumes are terrible.
Oh, they're awful.
Those had to have been so hot.
Yeah.
And so miserable to wear. But like the actual headpieces and the fact they were able to do that much acting out of it.
Yeah.
Was pretty incredible. Overall, this is just what I like. It's just a fun diversion. It gives you a little more insight into Picard. Patrick Stewart seems to be having a fun time, which is one of my big things when I go back and rewatch episodes.
Yeah.
Does the cast look like they're having fun is kind of a thing for me.
Sure.
And he definitely seems to be enjoying himself. Also, we get to say the name Chip Chalmers a bunch.
Chip Chalmers,
which is right up there with Chip Chutney from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Oh, sure.
A good Chip name needs to be used as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great episode. It's fun, and it also just opens up Captain Picard. Can you imagine if he just remained like the stuffy guy that didn't like kids for 7 years?
Oh, yeah.
This is definitely a huge step in getting him out there and making him the guy that we know and love today.
Yeah, that with episodes like this, episodes like Family,
yeah,
The Inner Light, where he actually discusses that he hated kids, but now he can't imagine not having kids.
Yeah.
And things like that. He's a heck of a performer. I'm really glad that we're going to get him back on the air, or on the internet, such as it were.
Me too.
Even if I'm going to have to wait a little bit before I get to see it, because got to catch up. But yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
You know what? He's funny, and that's the thing. Patrick Stewart's so good at humor.
Oh yeah.
And it's underused on Next Generation.
Yeah, he only maybe he'll get to host SNL again. He only did it like that one time, and I thought that he was really great.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's like he and McKellen, British actors of that school.
Yeah,
when they get a chance to do comedy, they really seem to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk My Space Dad. You beat up your Space Dad. I believe that your favorite Space Dad was Captain Kirk, because he boldly went first. And he was your first captain. So I guess what I would like to know is, how do you think Kirk would have dealt with this situation in this episode?
He would have effed his way through the entire episode.
He would have been after Vash.
He would have, because here's the thing about Kirk. Like, on the original series, like, everyone makes fun of, like, that he has a lot of women, blah, blah, blah. But he, genuinely engaged with those women and rarely treated them as space floozies.
Sure.
However, he was a robust gentleman.
Sure.
So I think that he would probably, the opening of the episode would be him stumbling out of a Risa hotel going, okay, yeah, no, that's enough. Can't do that anymore.
I need to read a book, yeah.
McCoy is going to kill me if he finds out what I've sprained. And he's sitting down and reading a book, and then he gets sucked into the adventure. I think that he would have twigged to the Vorgons. By the way, their name is very close to Vogon.
Yeah, I think that's a reference.
It drives me a little crazy. But yeah, he would have twigged to the Vorgons instantly. And I think he would have pulled one of his famous a piece of the action style, you want me to help you? How about you help me? On Max Grodenchik's Ferengi, gotten him to do a bunch of the work.
Sure.
And then said, okay, I'm going to take this. We're going to take this away. You guys can't have this. I'm going to destroy it.
Right.
The end. I think it would have been probably Vash. I think he'd enjoy Vash's company almost purely as a fun woman that he didn't want to sleep with.
Okay.
Because he could have had all the sex he wanted.
Right.
See, that's the thing. Kirk could have taken advantage of the hot and cold running sex and then went, a woman who is my intellectual equal, who wants to have an adventure? That sounds fun.
You're a tomb robber, eh? Yeah.
Picard's he's just not a guy that, he has that one other relationship on TNG with the woman in Stellar Sciences.
Yeah, they did duets together on the piano.
Yeah, that's all for him and smooching.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I want to see that episode now. Now that we've reached the end of the show, you'll receive a promotion to the rank Lieutenant Junior grade. And last time you were on the show, I think we slotted you into the leisure department, the person making sure everybody's having a smooth voyage. And I guess I'd want to know then how would you feel competition from a place like Risa?
No, because
Risa's about leisure.
Risa is about leisure, but I can offer them leisure in space when they're doing the deep, dark, terrible things.
Right.
And I can program film programs.
Right.
And I can set up holodeck simulations of fun times that, yes, on Risa, you can have sex because you have a sex totem that you carry around.
Yes.
But in my holodeck, you and Han Solo can get drunk.
Whoa.
See? Or you can listen to music that's not classical music.
Yeah.
Or Riker on the trombone.
Right.
That'd be that's like the funny thing about the Enterprise. There's only two kinds of music: trombone, classical.
Right. Yeah. No, string quartet. Right.
And Vulcan lyre. That's it.
I think that we were speculating the last time you were on the show about the life of somebody who does that. Like the Isaac on the Love Boat, is he happy and shaking drinks, and then he goes back to his cabin and things aren't quite as happy.
Well, with that's I was talking to my wife about Guinan and how she's the ship's other counselor.
Yeah, right.
She's the ship's other counselor, and she's the bartender.
She's the McCoy, Yeah.
She's the McCoy much more than Crusher was in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well,
Crusher was a great doctor. McCoy was everybody's doctor for their head and their heart.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's too bad that we go back to Risa in that DS9 episode, and we actually get, like Vanessa Williams is one of the counselors or workers there. But we never really get, she talks a little bit about what she does, but we never get an answer to that Isaac question. Like, what is their life when they're not doing this?
Yeah.
Well, Lieutenant Church, thanks for joining me to talk about Star Trek and the Star Trek universe. If people want to continue the conversation, and they can at EISTpod on Twitter and the Enterprising Individuals Facebook page, where can people find you online?
As I mentioned before, not on Facebook, but at Kevin Church on Twitter.
Yes.
Theyboldlywent.com on your web browser, and that's it. BokuKevin.com, BeauCoup, the French word beaucoup. Kevin.com has a bunch of links to things I do. But yeah.
Okay, and thanks again for joining me.
I had a great time, as always.
We're signing off until the next mission. Hailing frequencies closed.
I'm Mikan Hana.
And I'm Caliban.
And we're the hosts of the Sailor Noob podcast. I'm the expert.
And I'm the noob.
You're talking into the wrong end of the microphone.
Aye, aye.
Okay. Every week we watch a new episode of Sailor Moon and learn about monsters, fashion, food, culture, and of course, the sailor warrior of love and justice, Sailor Moon.
All right, now, what is her rank? Is she an admiral or a rear admiral?
Okay, shh. The ad's almost over. We're a couple of magical people, and every week we Moon Prism Power make up a new episode.
Ready or not, ships. Steady as she goes.
Please stop that. Sailor Noob is available every Friday on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Shiver me timbers.